This is all indigenous. We're going to take a look at the cutting-edge developments taking place in Chennai.
All right, and the startup factory, innovation, startups and beyond, how IIT Madras is shaping India's tech future. In IIT Madras's role in building a Viksit Bharat, this is an exclusive.
And after that, we're looking at Gurudev Shri Shankar, his conversation with our colleague. He's going to be talking about the Somnath Shivalinga, the Shivalingas in India. This is a bigger chat that will be coming up.
And then on Overdrive today, we've got the BYD Sea Lion 7 tested and review sealed for you. How does the EV SUV stack up? Is BYD Sea Lion 7 the game changer for SUV EVs in India? The complete look and the real world range, power and features tested for you on the program.
All right, India's journey into space has been nothing short of extraordinary over the last few years. It started with well-known now humble beginnings, but now the nation in decades has emerged as a formidable force in space exploration. Our achievements put us right at the frontier. Today, as we stand on the cusp of a new era for space, our endeavors are poised to change our future.
So ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, has been the torchbearer of India's space ambitions with a commitment to cost-effective, innovative missions. ISRO has also achieved milestones that have garnered global acclaim as well. We all know about them. The successful landing of Chandrayaan-3 on the moon, the South Pole and the launch of Aditya L1 mission to study the sun are all testaments of India's growing capabilities in the space science.
Recognizing the potential of private enterprise, what you've also had happen in the last few years is that the government has initiated policies to encourage the private sector also. So their involvement in space activities now is being encouraged in a big way. An ecosystem is being set up. The establishment of the Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center serves as a regulatory body to facilitate private investments and collaborations. In 2024, the government approved a 10 billion rupee fund to support space startups aiming to boost employment and innovation in the same sector. You have companies that have come up in the last few years. Some of them you may have heard of. Skyroot Aerospace, Agnikul Cosmos. These are companies that are private, but they've made significant strides. They've had successful suborbital tests, the development of indigenous launch vehicles
as well, right? So now these startups exemplify the synergy between public support, private innovation that is getting a great push from the government as well, positioning India as a competitive player in the global space market. Will India have its own Tesla one day? Well, we're all waiting for that, to have a company of that magnitude. India's space strategy emphasizes international cooperation and ambitious future missions. Plans are underway to establish the Bharatiya Antariksh Station, the National Space Station, by 2035, not very far from today. Now, additionally, India aims to send a crewed mission to the moon in 2040.
Collaborations with global space agencies, including NASA and ESA, have enriched India's technological capabilities. India has also had its private companies work with SpaceX, when, we mentioned them a few minutes ago. And all of this has expanded our scientific horizons. The joint NASA-ISRO synthetic aperture radar, this is a mission that is slated for 2025. It's an example of such partnerships. The idea of that is to aim and provide critical data on the Earth's changing ecosystems. But despite remarkable progress, India's space sector is still facing some challenges.
And in 2024, the funding for space startups saw a 55% decline, for example. This underscores the need for sustained investment and supportive policies to nurture innovation. Moreover, as the global space race intensifies, India must navigate geopolitical dynamics, technological advancements, and the imperative of self-reliance, the absolute need at the moment. Balancing these factors will be crucial in maintaining and enhancing India's position in the space domain, of course.
Okay, so to tell us a little more, first we have the former ISRO chief. He's with us this morning to tell us a little bit more about the entire space story, where India is in this journey. Let's just go over to him to understand more. ISRO Chief Sivan, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. Tell us first, sir, India's space story, ISRO's achievements. They make it one of the leading space agencies in the world. Space tech is an area that India is cutting edge in. And I think today, at a day when we talk about India's need to grow in other areas, AI, quantum physics, for example, what did we do right in this particular area? What was the ecosystem building that took place years ago?
Indian space program actually started with a noble vision of providing that space-based technologies for the benefits of the common man. That was the vision with which that ISRO was initiated, and for that, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai was of the view that the technologies required for achieving this vision to be indigenous. Now that we have come a long way, and we have developed launch vehicles, we have developed the satellites, and we have developed the ground segments. All these things are indigenously developed. Now we are providing services to the nation, and at present each and every moment of the common man of India is one way or other linked to the space technology. That much achievement we did, and very important thing is all these things we have achieved indigenously. That is more important.
True that. But sir, you know, the other big chapter in India's space journey has been the private companies and their participation. Companies like Pixel doing groundbreaking work in satellite imaging, Agnikul, Skyroot, we mentioned that, are working again on indigenous rocket launches. So what kind of policy changes or perhaps infrastructure support do you think India needs to fully unlock the potential of private space sector? And how do you actually imagine private-public, collab on this one?
Basically, this particular aspect of opening up the space sector potential for the unlocking the space sector potential for the private sector, it was initiated in 2020, and it was a bold step by our Honorable Prime Minister. And immediately after the bold step, that lot of private companies started groundbreaking work, and the type of developments happen in the satellite area or launch vehicle area, it is really amazing. And what I am telling is the private people are showing that they are not less than ISRO, and they can do even better than ISRO. That way, by opening up the space sector, it's in the startups and private companies are doing excellent way. And now we are thinking of that already we have shifted that PSLV project to the private sector for making its own rocket PSLV. And this is yet another event. And now they are planning to shift the other launch vehicles like GSLV Mark III, SSLV also to industries to make it. So that way, the whole private sector ecosystem on the aerospace area is really growing very fast, and they are really doing a wonderful job. And I am sure that they will come to equal to ISRO very soon.
Chandrayaan 3 success, Gaganyaan, all of this obviously marks India's ambition beyond Earth's orbit. But what we've heard about is that interplanetary missions can require sustained funding, long-term strategic vision essentially. It's not something, that can be done over the short term at all. Can you tell us what India's next big priority when it comes to deep space exploration, what that should be?
Now immediately that after that Chandrayaan 3 mission, that next big mission, the deep space exploration is on the Venus orbital mission. This project is already approved by the government of India. Now it is going on very well, and by 2028 India is planning to launch a probe to Venus. That way it is a next step. That one is already approved program. Already that programs like next Mars orbiter mission, such things are there. But the Venus mission is one is already approved and it is going on very fast. And there is a time slot also to launch by 2028.
I'm coming back to my question, sir, on public-private partnership on this one. And Indian space program has historically been government-driven. But with satellite-based services, space tourism, even asteroid mining becoming some of the future industries that one hears of, how do you see ISRO's role evolving in these areas? Will it continue as a guiding force, or do you foresee more hands-off regulatory role, like you see perhaps NASA shift with SpaceX, for example?
No, definitely this that our future in the space area is really vast, this one, and that they in addition right now there is a very clear directions up to 2040 that Bharati Antarisha Station we have to go build, and also that man should be landed on the moon by 2040. These are the directions given by government for ISRO to do that work. And now we are thinking something beyond that. Definitely that more exciting missions like mining the asteroid, all these things are required. And only thing is that requires a huge amount of investment, and private parties should come forward to collaborate. So ISRO also can contribute on technological developments, but who has to do what, that it has to be decided later. But that is a lot of collaborative efforts are required. There is a single agency alone, considering that time, technology development and money is involved. So single agency alone is not sufficient to manage. So it has to be done by multiple agencies together. In this one, I am sure that the private people's contribution will be in a major way. That's what is expected very soon.
All right.
Tell us, what is India's biggest competitive advantage, and what gaps do you think our country still needs to bridge when it comes to emerging? We already have emerged as a global leader in space tech. We're number one when it comes to a few different aspects. We've been the first, for example, to reach a particular part of the moon. But what more is it going to take to set us apart?
So definitely that is our India's effort mainly on the space activities, on the low cost access to space. Regarding the technology development, that is we are also on par with other people. We are no way less than others. That way I would say that we are equal to them. But we are not going to compete with anybody. We are doing our own job with our own definition. But at the same time, we are the biggest advantage. What India is doing is executing all these costly projects in a very cost-effective way. That is a main purpose and main objective of that India's the space visions.
And you're right, that does give us an edge against the world on how we're managing to do such great quality stuff, path-breaking stuff, but also doing it in such little means. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us and sort of putting all that is happening in the world of space tech in perspective for us. But that's not all on the program. We've got another guest to explore another angle with.
Right, so if we're going to explore space long term, more than rockets and satellites, there's the other aspect, building manufacturing in the space itself. That's where some of India's best minds come in. At IIT Madras, for example, the XSTEM research group is working on groundbreaking technology. What is XSTEM? We'll talk about it in just a second. Professor Satyan Surya is with us right now. He's the faculty coordinator of the XSTEM program. XSTEM, sir, let's just tell our audiences, it stands for Extraterrestrial Manufacturing Research at IIT Madras. Thank you for joining us this morning, Professor. In the next few minutes, we're hoping will be a little like sitting in one of your classrooms. We'll have you explain a lot of the definitions for us. You know, we are lay people. We don't have a deep understanding of this. So we're going to ask you to start off by just telling us, what is manufacturing in space for space? How is that different from manufacturing in space for Earth? What does it mean? Can you just break that down for us?
Sure. Manufacturing in space for space means I'm going to make things in space and use them in space itself. So, for example, let's say India wants to create a base in the moon. So we want to make things on the moon and use them in the base itself, right? Or if you're going to have a base in Mars, that's what we mean by manufacturing in space for use in space. Whatever we're going to make use it right there. Manufacturing in space for Earth is a little different. It's a lot more commercial angle to it. That is, imagine factories, floating around in orbit, not satellites now, but factories. Let's call them space factories, where we send raw material to that factory. It's going to make products, and then I'm going to bring it back to the Earth and use it here. That's what we mean by manufacturing in space for Earth. So there are certain things that that we can make better when there is no gravity, for instance. That's why we want to do something like that.
I see. One of the papers that you write, and they're very fascinating, a lot of it beyond our understanding, but one word that keeps coming back, and that is microgravity. Could you sort of dumb it down for us on what exactly does that mean and how that is the basis of a lot of innovation that you do?
Sure. On the Earth here, we always feel the pull of gravity. So if you drop your cell phone, it falls down because the Earth is sort of attracting the cell phone. What is also important is that every atom and molecule in that cell phone also feels that force. So, and that is actually we take it for granted. It's always there, and all our whatever manufacturing activities that we do, whether it's an industry that makes your Coca-Cola or whatever, the gravity force is always there, and our process is always tuned to that. Now, when you go into a free fall state, like when you are in, let's say you are in a lift and the lift just snaps and you're just falling down, for example, or if you're on a satellite, the satellite is also on a continuous free fall, for instance, the gravity effect is not there. And when the gravity effect is not there, certain phenomena, changes. So things like, for example, convection, hot air rises and then cold air comes down. We say, for example, that's because of gravity effect. That is not there. So when you have liquids and you have, gases, they behave very differently under the lack of gravity. And that's what changes things when you manufacture things in space.
Any examples you can share of that, like some of the products that you're developing because of microgravity, just to sort of get a sense of it?
Yeah. So, for example, there are three products that people think are commercially interesting to make in space and bring it back for Earth. One is optical fibers, the other one is semiconductor crystals, and the third one is organoids, bioprinting, for example. Let's say bioprinting, So for example, if you're a pharmaceutical company, you're developing a new medicine that's needed for a certain disease, you would want to test that on a certain tissue, for example, right? Now, obviously, you cannot do that on a live person. It has to be some sort of a simulated tissue, and one of the simulated tissues is called organoids. And those organoids are very difficult to grow under Earth conditions because gravity is always pulling the cells down, for instance. And now if I do that in space, I can make the organoids better. And those are a significant value add to a pharmaceutical company, for example. Yeah. The second example is, optical fibers. You have internet that's coming to your home or office through a silica fiber. It's actually glass, basically glass, optical, glass. But if you have a different material than silica, which we call as Zebulon, that material has a higher bandwidth. It can carry more signals across a wider spectrum, for example. But it's very difficult to make on the Earth here. Gravity always disturbs the process of making that fiber. But if I make that fiber in space, I can make that better. I can make it. If I imagine I'm going to send all the raw material to a optical fiber factory in space, and that makes it and sends it back, and I'm going to use it on Earth. So that's sort of one other example that we can say where gravity significantly influences the manufacturing process.
So fascinating.
Professor, what is Martian concrete? Was reading about that, was fascinated by its name. Just tell us what it is and how you are developing it, please.
Sure, yeah. So my colleague, Professor Piyush, in our civil engineering department, he's an expert on building structures, for example. So he's part of the center, and we've been working with him on trying to, how do we use, before I go into the concrete, just one basic question is, how do I use the sand that's available on Moon or Mars, right? So we go land on Moon or Mars, what do we find? We don't find trees, we don't find, rocks, but we find a whole bunch of sand that is there on it. So how do we make use of the sand? So one of the uses of sand is, of course, we want to establish, settlements. Like we want to build a house or an office space, bricks, walls, and so forth.
You mean on the planet?
On the moon, we're talking about on the moon or on the Mars. Now. So So what one of the research that our group has done, which is Piyush's group, is he takes the sand and figures out, okay, what do I mix with it? How do I bind it together so that I can make little concrete blocks, for example, right? So here on the Earth, if you want to build a house, what do? You call the company, they'll bring some cement, they'll bring some bricks, they'll bring some gravel, you put some reinforcements and you make your houses. But then what do I do on Mars, right? So we look for what chemicals are available in Mars. Yeah, so water is not available. So we take sulfur, for example. We could probably extract sulfur from the on the surface of Mars. So we mix that with the soil. Now soil, of course, we don't have the soil here, but we have what is called simulants, the soils that simulate how the Mars looks like. So we mixed that in various proportions. We did all kinds of different experiments to figure out what is optimal sort of configuration that would work. We made bricks and then we sort of tested did some compression tests on them to figure out they're as good as, good enough to use for a construction purpose, for example. And so we have made some of those prototypes and we think that the compression strength is good enough to actually start building structures with it, for instance. So that would be Martian concrete,
Yeah, so another word for that is waterless concrete. Am I saying that correct? And that
correct, because there's no use of water there,
So imagine concrete and structures being built without water, and that testing being done by you guys. So some spectacular stuff there. But sir, I have a more fundamental question that I want to understand from you. Last couple of years, rocketry has become, or what happens in space, ISRO, etc., with all the achievements that the organization is doing, has become rather cool. We recently had a series called Rocket Boys. Everybody loved it. Fundamental questions like, why are we spending in space when we have so many other issues to actually deal with in India also cropped up? What is it that the entire fraternity needs today for those watching right now? Is it talent? Is it infrastructure? Is it money? What is the need of the hour that will really sort of catapult us and put us in the top 3 players when it comes to space?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one word I would say is, thinking out of the box. Yeah, so innovation, if you want to call it, and space is a spectacular, sort of a seed for thinking out of the box, because you are in space, you have different constraints there. So if you can come up with some cool ideas, and I think we have plenty of bright minds in the country. So thinking out of the box, thinking boldly, thinking crazy ideas, and then figuring out, testing them. Some of them will fail, that's fine, but then we will find that one idea that will work. I think that's really what is required. If you look at the various competitions that worldwide space agencies launch, is just this: they want ideas. They launch a competition and say, okay, here, I want to make use of the food packaging that comes into the space station. How can I recycle it and make stuff? They want ideas. So I think if you can come up with cool ideas, test them in a very small way, prove them out, and then figure out how to get them launched into space and make use of it. I think that's really what is needed in India.
And Professor, tell us, walk us through some of the stories you've seen of young students hopefully coming up with these bright ideas, coming to you, coming to other professors and going, could this be something that works? What are examples you've seen?
Yeah, so for example, at IIT Madras, we have this, we have, of course, our research students, MS and PhD students, and, they come up with ideas. Everyday discussions we have with them. So my student Nitya came up with some ideas on how regolith can be used in various ways, for example. So our PhD research students are constantly coming up with ideas, testing them out. Some of them work, some of them really, they really are successful, which leads to, papers and startups and so forth. And we also have undergraduate students and master's students who work in a Center for Innovation. So they form student clubs, they participate in competitions, and I happen to mentor 2 of them, and they keep coming up with new ideas. They test them. This is not in the classroom, they're outside the classroom, they are sort of playing around with the hardwares, softwares, and so forth. So that's sort of something, the cool thing that's happening in our campus, and is really exciting to see.
Absolutely lovely. Cool stuff happening from Rocket Boys and Girls really in your campus. We hope the next big idea actually crops up from there and we're able to chat again about how that path breaking that has been. Thank you so much, Professor, for your time this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we're heading into a short break after opening our minds up with all of the space exploration that's taking place, the space manufacturing, the tech, the laboratory work that's happening right now in Chennai. But we're going to go into a short break. On the other side, we take you to the road. We're taking you to a test of the BYD Celian 7. It's been tested, but how does this EV SUV actually stack up with others? We're bringing you the review. This is Overdrive telling you how its performance actually stands. It's a game changer, or is it for EV SUVs? That's the big question. We'll take a look at on the other side.
आपके घर के
Well, why are we giving $21 million to India? They got a lot of money. They're one of the highest taxing countries in the world in terms of us. We can hardly get in there because their tariffs are so high. I have a lot of respect for India. I have a lot of respect for the Prime Minister. He just left, as you know, 2 days ago. But we're giving $21 million for voter turnout. It's voter turnout in India. What about, like, voter turnout here? Oh, we've done that, I guess. We did 500 million, didn't we? It's called the lockboxes.
The cancellation of a $21 million fund intended for voter turnout in India has sparked a heated debate across the country. Just a day after the US Department of Government Efficiency pulled the funding, the BJP raised concerns, claiming the move was an example of interference in India's electoral process. Reacting to the decision, BJP's Amit Malviya took to his X account and expressed his concerns, $21M for voter turnout. This definitely is external interference in India's electoral process. Who gains from this? Not the ruling party for sure. On February 17th, BJP leader Nalin Kohli launched a direct attack on Congress, stating, if anyone has received money under this, it must be made clear. And if something like this is being stopped, it's in the larger interest of the freedom of democracy, without interference.
What is coming out in the media is certainly worrisome. Why would any US agency wish to give $21 million for election-related work in India? Would that not amount to interference in India's electoral process? We are the world's largest democracy. Free and fair elections are held here. Institutionally, there are mechanisms that ensure free and fair elections, including the Election Commission of India. The opposition party wins, the ruling party wins. People have a full right to go and vote in the manner they wish. Now, the serious question is, in the past, we've seen certain political parties, like the Congress, even engaging with organizations like Cambridge Analytica, which was with an attempt to somehow create some kind of influence that may change around or interfere with the election process. Now you have this 21 million. So certainly if anyone has received money under it, that has to be made clear. And certainly if something like that is being stopped, it is in the larger interest of freedom of democracy without interference.
Amidst the controversy, former Chief Election Commissioner of India, Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, took to X to refute claims about the report, saying it didn't have an iota of fact. He clarified that during his tenure as CEC in 2012, there was an MOU with the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, IFES, just as with many other organizations, to facilitate training for countries at the Election Commission of India's Training and Resource Centre, IIDM. His series of tweets on X read the report in a section of media about an MOU by ECI in 2012 when I was CEC, for funding of certain $1 million by a US agency for raising voter turnout in India, does not have an iota of fact. Yes, there was a MOU with IFES in 2012 when I was CEC, like we had with many other agencies and election management bodies, to facilitate training for desirous countries at ECI's Training and Resource Centre, IIDM, which was very new at that stage. There was no financing or even promise of finance involved in MOU, forget X or Y amount.
Welcome back. You're watching The Breakfast Club. Let's take you to another fascinating chat now. India is on the brink of a technological revolution. At the heart of this transformation is IIT Madras, one of the country's most prestigious institutions. IIT Madras has become the epicenter of India's digital future. So, what's the vision behind it all?
And institution plan to shape India's role in the global tech race? That's a big question. To understand a little bit more, CNN News 18's Anand Narasimhan had an exclusive conversation. This is with the man leading all of this change, Professor V. Kamakoti. He's the director of IIT Madras. He sat down with us. He's been right at the forefront of some of the most ambitious projects it's seen in the last few years. Take a look. This is a conversation.
Are we still aping the West in terms of catering to from our education system, coaching system, teaching methods as to what the West wants, and let's try and supplement that? Or have we changed our mindset? And secondly, if we want to get to a Viksit Bharat by 2047, what more do we need to do?
Yes, great question. So how much time I have for these two questions?
You take your time.
Yeah, sure. So the first question is, what is our education system? See, I would just want many of the viewers who are taking this to look at out-of-the-box thinking through mathematics from IIT Madras. This, in my opinion, is a very, very interesting, important course where we say that you can, from nature, you can learn a lot of things which, textbooks don't teach you, right? Like frog jumping of a frog. You can learn a lot of things where you can solve many trigonometry or geometry problems, okay? Or sequence problems, number theory problems. So I just want all the viewers to look at out-of-box thinking and search IIT Madras out-of-the-box thinking. We have introduced that course. For example, since you asked about how are we, I strongly believe that, Indian knowledge system and Indian education, Indian way of education is extremely important, and mother tongue is extremely important. We should be conversant in English. So I think all of us agree that we need to talk good English. We need to be, we need to be comfortable in communicating in English. But the learning should is in the mother tongue. It is much more expressive, right? In many times when we get a bit more Josh, even in this conversation, you see, we would have moved to Tamil.
Yeah, moved to Tamil, correct.
Yeah. So
that emotion comes in Tamil only.
Emotion comes only in. So if somebody hits, you don't say mother, right? Amma, that's what we say, right? And ma, that's what I'm saying. Somewhere mother tongue plays a very important role. And I believe that Aramshaya Virumbu Aruvadishinam that we had is much better than a nursery rhyme that we are speaking taught. Because we teach the Aramshaya Virumbu Aruvadishinam, you see this Atichuvadi, that teaches you A, E, it also teaches you moral values, and it's also a nice memorization, right? So all these three things come. So Indian, and that is true in every language. If you go to Malayalam, you have one Telugu, you have Oriya, you have in all the languages, Hindi we have. So I think our knowledge system has been very robust. It has, and it is so packed that when you do one thing, you learn N things. Right, in Tamil Nadu, I think even in the northern part, do you know this Pallanguri, right? This Pallanguri is a game that we play, right? It's our things. Pallanguri teaches us so many things. It teaches you strategy. It teaches you, the tactics or whatever you plan. And then it also teaches you a lot of mathematics, modulo arithmetic. Okay, 16 mod. 3 times I do, I have 48 years, mod I do, where will I end, remainder theorem. So many things that it teaches you. And so there are some Indian games which can be played, which can be brought into it so that your experience in learning becomes quite beautiful, right? So these are some things, Anand, we are missing in the Macaulay's education series. Okay, so somewhere I strongly believe that we must get the Indian knowledge system in place. We must understand what our entire knowledge base, right, in each of these languages have, and put all these things together and basically see how we can educate our kids using these systems that were existing, say, 200, 300 years before.
Okay, let's take you now to something slightly different. Somnath, it's one of the 12 revered Jyotirlingas. It holds deep spiritual and historical significance for the country, and for centuries it's been a symbol of resilience, faith and devotion. Now, a piece of history that was believed to be lost is being restored to its rightful place.
Now, the sacred fragments of original Somnath Shivalinga, preserved by the Agnihotri family for generations, are set to return to Somnath. And Gurudev Shri Ravi Shankar, in an exclusive conversation, actually shared these details on how divine relic was actually safeguarded and how it would travel across the country before reaching its final abode.
I believe there is this report which is there from 2007, and this report actually says that, but before we talk about this report, Gurudev, how did you believe that this could be the actual Amsha of the original Shivalinga of Somnath?
No, it is, you see, you can see this. See, from families they have been protecting for so many generations. Panditji's Tauji, I mean his Chacha, his father, they were all Agnihotris. Agnihotri means they don't go out anywhere, they don't eat anywhere, they have to make their own food, they have to have the water from the same place. So they have many rules, restrictions. With that they have been protecting and preserving it for so many years. Now here you see the Shivalinga.
Wow. So it has its own magnetic field.
It has its own magnetic field.
So this perhaps proves how a 3-foot tall Shivalinga, as it's doctrined or as it is written, was hanging mid-air because of the magnetic properties.
Correct.
So when they came to you, Gurudev, didn't you wonder why me?
You know, I never think about why me. You know, we're all meant to do something good in the society. So we have been chosen to do this. We continue to do. We don't ask why me, why not others. These sort of questions are very childish for me.
But once you realize this is the original Amsha of the original Shivalinga, what was the request? What did the Perivar Shankaracharya, what did he want?
You know, the family of Sitaramanji have always wanted that to go back to Saurashtra. Because that is, Saurashtra is Somanatham, that's the first Jyotirling. So instead of individual having puja, if only few people know about it, get benefit out of it, I think nation should get benefit. Everybody should know about it. That's what my contention is also. So said that Shivalingam should be put where everyone can take the blessings.
तो सीतारामन जी, थोड़ा ये रिपोर्ट के बारे में बताइए. दिस इज अ 2007 का रिपोर्ट.
नहीं, जब मेरे हाथ में मिला मेरे को इतना इसके अंदर मैग्नेट क्या है ये इतना पता नहीं था. जब पूजा करने के बाद पता चला, एक दिन अचानक पता चला, अभिषेक करने के बाद चंदन लगाने के लिए उठाया, वो घूमने लगा. तभी मेरे को इसके बारे में और पता होना चाहिए, उस पर वो इंटरेस्ट चालू हुआ. तब तक सिर्फ पूजा करते आए.
तब तक आपको भी नहीं मालूम था कि ये क्यों पूजा करना है,
कहाँ से बताया था ये सोमनाथ जी का है. अच्छा. वहाँ वापस जाकर प्रतिष्ठा करना है, उतना ही पता. इवन मुझे सोमनाथ जी के बारे में भी कुछ पता नहीं. उतना ही वो बोला था गुजरात का है, सोमनाथ जी का है, पूजा करते रहो तुम्हारा पूरा कल्याण हो जाएगा. सच में मुझे बहुत अच्छा कल्याण किया. वे पूजा करते हैं. फिर इसके अंदर इतना मैग्नेट है, ये हुई वो, तभी मैंने वो थोड़ा रिसर्च करना शुरू किया. फिर एक्सरे किया, ये किया, वो लैब में चेक किया. सब बोलने लगा ये पंडित जी इसके डेटा हमारे पास नहीं है, ऐसा एक चीज़ के बारे में हमारा कोई डेटा में भी नहीं है. ये तभी लोग बोलने लगा ये भगवान है, इसका तुम रिसर्च करना शुरू कर दिया. पंडित होके ये क्या करेगा, फिर चुप हो गए.
जिसमें दिव्यता है उसमें रिसर्च क्यों करना,
बट इसका लैब में थोड़ी
नहीं होना चाहिए. But the fact is that this report says that contrary to magnets who have magnetic fields on the poles, north and south poles, that's what. This has its gauze is in the center. So the magnetism is at the center. That itself shows that this is not from Prithviloka. Because there is nothing that is from, so there is a certain level of divine in that. What it was made of, we don't know. But ऐसे कितने अंश हैं आपके
And
पास?
then you see the gods of this is 140 gods. This is never heard about. Usually it is only 7, 8, 9, 10. But the power of that.
जी, जैसा आपने कहा, sample 1 में 140 gauge and sample 2 में 120 gauge. So such heavy magnetic नहीं है. It is unheard of.
Geologists are really surprised about this. And then it has barium and very little iron in this.
Very little iron, yes. Yes, it says magnesium, silica, Fe and iron is very little, yes.
Very little iron.
Correct.
Usually the magnet you have more iron.
Correct.
But in this is very unique. Apart from that, when there is a sacredness attached to something, when you honor it, and then, the divinity dawns in it.
But Gurudev, you also know science and spirituality go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Sometimes spirituality is required to prove science, and sometimes science is required to prove something which is spiritual and deep.
They coexist. They are extension of each other. See, in this country, we never separated these two. We always said jnana vijnana triptatma. Knowledge of what is this, science, who am I, spirituality, they go together. Subjective and objective knowledge. Here, the Shivalingam, archakasya prabhavena shila bhavati shankara. This is a saying. That means by the worshippers, the shila becomes Ishwar. So here, this was not just treated as another stone, but has been worshipped from generations.
Okay, let's take you now to the world of automotive. In particular, we're looking at electric SUVs that are entering the market right now. But the big question here is, do they tick all the right boxes? What we're taking a look at today is the BYD Sea Lion 7. It promises a claimed 542 kilometer range, 530 PS of power and an AWD option. But how does it fare in the real world? That's obviously the big question.
Now, driving performance to interior space and features, we put it all to test. Here's what the Overdrive team found out in their review.
We're just getting started with 2025 and it's very clear that this is going to be the year for EVs in India. So in this heavy action, it's quite possible that the BYD Sea Lion 7 may have missed your full attention. But we're driving this SUV today, and in this video, we tell you why you should give it a long, hard look if you are in the market for a luxury electric SUV. The BYD Sea Lion 7 shares its E-Platform 3 with the Seal, so it's a fully integrated skateboard EV architecture. A single 82.56 kWh battery pack is available using BYD's proprietary Blade LFP technology. As with the Seal, a notable advancement is the cell-to-body technology, where the battery cells are directly integrated into the car structure, bringing lightness and better energy density. There are two powertrain options on offer, a dual motor all-wheel drive option as seen here that's good for 542 kilometers of NEDC range, and a rear-driven single motor version that does 567 kilometers. While we couldn't put it through a range test, you can expect 450 kilometers of real-world range from the dual motor version without much hypermiling at all. Now, one of the complaints that we had with the Atto 3 and the Seal was that while the quality and finish was great, the design of the interiors felt a bit over the top. But now, as BYD has become a more global car brand, you realize that they've also matured in this aspect. The Sea Lion 7, when you look at the interiors, it looks modern, it looks contemporary, it looks like it could be out of any of the other major global car brands, and that's really quite a good thing because the quality has remained intact. So, as you can see, you have soft materials more or less everywhere here. Look at the roof lining, it's very well done, this mirror here. So in terms of execution, it's really quite good. There's still some flair in the flap-like door handles and in the way this connects to the dash. but overall it's sober and well accented by the ambient lighting. Some bits like the plasticky door handles and the untextured silver patterns on the dash are a bit of a letdown, but these are also well hidden by the rest of the feel from the cabin. So the buttons on the steering wheel and other switchgear have good tactility and good attention to detail. You notice this with the suede finish on the large charging pads and central bin, as well as the neat ambient lighting integration. The crystal gear lever and central toggle buttons make a good impression too with their textures and damped action.
And then you have some of the more familiar touches that we've seen in BYD cars, although here too there have been some improvements. Of course, you have this massive 15.6-inch screen. Having said that, you still have that party trick of it becoming portrait. But as we've noted before, in the portrait mode, it kind of sort of blocks your view and it really doesn't work well. And when you do switch to say Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, it just goes back into the landscape mode, and this is where I think you should use it more often than not.
But like before, most functions are controlled via the central screen. You still find that accessing the ventilated seats, climate settings and ADAS features need you to dive deep into menus. A party trick that helps to an extent is the live vehicle view, lets you control the windows and mirrors via the screen. The instrument cluster too could have been more customizable and shown more information than it does. The speed readout is quite small, but you are helped to an extent by the bright head-up display. You get a driver monitoring system, but as with these functions, it can get intrusive sometimes. Here's a look at all the other features and safety equipment that the C-Line 7 offers, of which there is a lot.
But having said that, with this being a ground-up electric architecture, the kind of practicality that you get is really quite impressive. So of course you have this big huge space underneath. It's also got a nice suede kind of lining to it, which feels high quality. You have pretty decent sized cup holders, beep cubby here, a Type A, Type C charger, 12-volt charger. Like I mentioned, these really large charging pads.
But for many of you, the rear seat will be the more important space in the C-Line 7. With a 2930mm wheelbase and 1660mm track width, this is a spacious car in the back. The dark cabin theme and small high-set windows can hide this, but a lighter cabin option is available too. Anyway, the glass roof also creates an airy sense.
Here, as you can see, I have a pretty good amount of headroom, knee room and even leg room. That's not a problem considering these seats have been raised up. And we've also made a 6-footer sit here, and he's had no real issues in terms of fitting in here as well. Now, of course, with this being a fully electric architecture, you have a flat floor. So while you can sit in the middle and really there's no problem with the kind of room I have, this backrest really is quite intrusive and I wouldn't recommend it for long journeys.
But we do think a third climate zone could have been added here. The glass is double glazed and has a UV film, but these don't work as well as full sunshades in our weather.
But anyway, the seats themselves, they hold you in place well. They have a nice contouring to them, just like the front seats. So you aren't thrown around too much, say around a set of bends or so on and so forth. And the cushioning itself is also just the right consistency. And thigh support is okay for me, but the 6-foot person that sat here, they did complain about thigh support. So that is something you should be concerned of. You get even more of those Dyna audio speakers here and here. Some good storage space in the doors and around here again. And a Type A and Type C charge port, some more pockets here and here.
All right, next we're going to bring you a special section on financial markets powered by Money Control Pro. It's Money Control's premium destination for investing and business insights. First, an overview. GIFT Nifty indicates a soft opening for Indian stock markets. US stock markets close flat. This is amid continuing tensions on trade. Crude oil price rise on concerns that global markets may see supply disruptions. And gold prices ease as investors take stock of the latest economic data.
All right, let's look at a sector in focus this Wednesday morning. Commercial vehicles put up a lackluster show in the first half thanks to the elections and the heat wave. Now, while infrastructure activities took a backseat, order momentum appears to have be reviving from Q3 onwards. Now, this is reflected in improving commercial vehicle sales that should support financiers as well. Financiers mostly have a fixed rate book that should aid their interest margin in the declining rate scenario as well. Now, you can log into Money Control Pro to find out more about the commercial vehicles and the allied sectors as well, and various other actionable insights on the markets. It's a premier destination for all the investing views and financial insights you will ever need, brought to you by Money Control.
And let's head into a quick break. On the other side, stay with us because we're bringing you our videos of the day. So just see you in a few minutes.
Well, why are we giving $21 million to India? They got a lot of money. They're one of the highest taxing countries in the world in terms of us. We can hardly get in there because their tariffs are so high. I have a lot of respect for India. I have a lot of respect for the Prime Minister. He just left, as you know, 2 days ago. But we're giving $21 million for voter turnout. It's voter turnout in India. What about, like, voter turnout here? Oh, we've done that, I guess. We did 500 million, didn't we? It's called the lockboxes.
The cancellation of a $21 million fund intended for voter turnout in India has sparked a heated debate across the country. Just a day after the US Department of Government Efficiency pulled the funding, the BJP raised concerns, claiming the move was an example of interference in India's electoral process. Reacting to the decision, BJP's Amit Malviya took to his X account and expressed his concerns, $21M for voter turnout. This definitely is external interference in India's electoral process. Who gains from this? Not the ruling party for sure. On February 17th, BJP leader Nalin Kohli launched a direct attack on Congress, stating, if anyone has received money under this, it must be made clear. And if something like this is being stopped, it's in the larger interest of the freedom of democracy, without interference.
What is coming out in the media is certainly worrisome. Why would any US agency wish to give $21 million for election-related work in India? Would that not amount to interference in India's electoral process? We are the world's largest democracy. Free and fair elections are held here. Institutionally, there are mechanisms that ensure free and fair elections, including the Election Commission of India. The opposition party wins, the ruling party wins. People have a full right to go and vote in the manner they wish. Now, the serious question is, in the past, we've seen certain political parties, like the Congress, even engaging with organizations like Cambridge Analytica, which was with an attempt to somehow create some kind of influence that may change around or interfere with the election process. Now you have this 21 million. So certainly if anyone has received money under it, that has to be made clear. And certainly if something like that is being stopped, it is in the larger interest of freedom of democracy without interference.
Amidst the controversy, former Chief Election Commissioner of India, Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, took to X to refute claims about the report, saying it didn't have an iota of fact. He clarified that during his tenure as CEC in 2012, there was an MOU with the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, IFES, just as with many other organizations, to facilitate training for countries at the Election Commission of India's Training and Resource Centre, IIDM. His series of tweets on X read the report in a section of media about an MOU by ECI in 2012 when I was CEC, for funding of certain $1 million by a US agency for raising voter turnout in India does not have an iota of fact. Yes, there was a MOU with IFES in 2012 when I was CEC, like we had with many other agencies and election management bodies to facilitate training for desirous countries at ECI's Training and Resource Centre, IIDM, which was very new at that stage. There was no financing or even promise of finance involved in Mao, forget X or Y amount. The Mao in fact made it clear in black and white that there would be no financial and legal obligation of any kind on either side. This stipulation was made at two different places to leave no scope for any ambiguity. Any mention of any funds in connection with
Welcome back. We're now going to be focusing on some videos, some news that's in focus right now. Apple is hosting its first event of 2025 this week, and what you're looking at on your screens right now is big hopes that we might see the new iPhone SE 4 unveiled
What? It
in
has one
front
camera?
of the entire
What's going on?
world. The company has not confirmed what will be showcased at the event, but the recent rumors and leaks, along with the teaser from Tim Cook, hint at only one thing.
Well, Apple is likely to have a pre-recorded video playing out on the launch day and share the product details with their release as well. You know how big these events are, and they've sort of set the bar there. This could be the first time Apple is doing a major launch event in Feb, which is not usual for the brand. Also, one camera, not very usual for the brand. So we've really got our eyes on what's really up next. But what else we've got as our video of the day? Netizens can't stop gushing over Hrithik Roshan's son, Hridan, calling him Indian Timothy. Is that how you feel as well, Toya, about it?
That he looks like Timothy Chalamet. I want to protect the young kids from the internet's glare for as long as we can protect them. You know, I don't want him to grow up in the spotlight like this, because we've done that already with
They're called Roshan. Spotlight is in their name.
I know, but you know, you wonder if they're going to miss childhood and stuff later. Anyway, all right.
Okay, here's sending the young boy lots of love and luck in the world of cinemas. There is a docu out on the family as well, which is actually not that bad. So if that's on your mind, enjoy it.
All right,
while we say goodbye and see you tomorrow. Ta-da.
Brought to you.
Well, why are we giving $21 million to India? They got a lot of money. They're one of the highest taxing countries in the world in terms of us. We can hardly get in there because their tariffs are so high. I have a lot of respect for India. I have a lot of respect for the Prime Minister. He just left, as you know, 2 days ago. But we're giving $21 million for voter turnout. It's voter turnout in India. What about, like, voter turnout here? Oh, we've done that, I guess. We did 500 million, didn't we? It's called the lockboxes.
The cancellation of a $21 million fund intended for voter turnout in India has sparked a heated debate across the country. Just a day after the US Department of Government Efficiency pulled the funding, the BJP raised concerns, claiming the move was an example of interference in India's electoral process. Reacting to the decision, BJP's Amit Malviya took to his X account and expressed his concerns, $21M for voter turnout. This definitely is external interference in India's electoral process. Who gains from this? Not the ruling party for sure. On February 17th, BJP leader Nalin Kohli launched a direct attack on Congress, stating, if anyone has received money under this, it must be made clear. And if something like this is being stopped, it's in the larger interest of the freedom of democracy, without interference.
What is coming out in the media is certainly worrisome. Why would any US agency wish to give $21 million for election-related work in India? Would that not amount to interference in India's electoral process? We are the world's largest democracy. Free and fair elections are held here. Institutionally, there are mechanisms that ensure free and fair elections, including the Election Commission of India. The opposition party wins, the ruling party wins. People have a full right to go and vote in the manner they wish. Now, the serious question is, in the past, we've seen certain political parties, like the Congress, even engaging with organizations like Cambridge Analytica, which was with an attempt to somehow create some kind of influence that may change around or interfere with the election process. Now you have this 21 million.